Hello and welcome to Healing Pathways. My name is Corey Newley from Pathway Light by Corey, and it is my goal for this podcast to introduce as many modes, methods, and mediums of spiritual healing as possible to help you along your journey in this incarnation. As a general disclosure, no one on this podcast today is a medical, legal, or financial advisor, and any advice given should not be taken as medical, legal, or financial advice. Today, I have Ruthie here to talk about how you can utilize Reiki on your spiritual healing journey. So, hello, Ruthie. Welcome in. I'm so happy to have you here.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, of course. So, I really want to start out how I start out all of these episodes with talking about you and what you do and what your connection to Reiki is and where you got started with Reiki. And then we can kind of go into what Reiki is.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm Ruthie. I am your spicy spiritual bestie. And that's really what I've gone by for the last 3 years. I can't even believe it, honestly. I do it all. Astrology, Reiki, mediumship, psychism, guide identification. I mentor. I literally do it all. So
Yeah.
it's hard to kind of pinpoint sometimes, like when people want that, like, what are you and what do you do? I'm like, I can't ever put it under one umbrella. Like, I just got to say it all.
You're like, I do
Um,
everything.
Everything. You name it, I do it. Inner child healing, which is really, really important. It's one of my favorite things to do, actually, which incorporates Reiki. Honestly, Reiki came after my second awakening. And I say second because we all have like so many during the spiritual journey. And I believe we have more than one. So I
Yeah.
think that was part of my second spiritual awakening. It was a year after I got into spirituality and started doing this and wanted to make this a business. I had lost everyone that I considered a friend or a soul family or whatever. I had lost everyone. I became kind of reclusive and I quit TikTok. Everything, everything, everything. And when I came back to TikTok and I kind of recentered myself and found myself again and really established my personal connection to spirit and myself without anybody else to help me with that, I was drawn to Reiki. And one of my best friends, and I'll name drop her here, there, anywhere. Her name is Carrie McCubbin. You're able to find her on TikTok and pretty much anywhere. And she is a Reiki master. And I kind of went to her and I was like, I think I want to learn Reiki. And she just was about to put out her first Reiki class ever.
Oh, wow. Talk
And
about
that's
alignment.
how I got, right? That's how I got into Reiki and that's how I got into learning it because of my best friend and kind of knowing how it moved through her and watching her work with Reiki. It was like, I need this. I need this and I need to learn how to do this and I need to learn how to be able to utilize this in my practice to help others. Um, Reiki changed my life. Not
Yeah.
only receiving it and for the first time, but like learning it and being attuned to it. It changed my entire life. It changed my journey. It changed my connection to myself and to spirit and to energy. And it truly, truly made a humongous difference.
I love that. And I have had a similar experience with Reiki too. Reiki for me has allowed me to break barriers in a lot of what I perceive to be the foundation of my being. And when I broke those barriers, I had a lot of profound realization about myself that I think I needed Reiki in order to get through and in order to find. And Reiki for me has also been healing on a physical level to a certain degree because I have migraines, and receiving Reiki sessions has actually helped with those migraines. And I will also say that a lot of times too, when a lot of cancer centers Now, they actually have incorporated some Reiki centers inside of those treatment centers because of its known benefits. And again, to preface, none of us are medical professionals here, but that just goes to show that even the medical professionals back the practices and the effectiveness of Reiki.
Absolutely. It's really, really, it's a really profound journey and experience to undertake for sure.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk about what is Reiki because I feel like a lot of people, they're scrolling on TikTok, they're scrolling on Instagram, whatever it is, and then come across somebody who is just waving their hands across the screen, going up, down, in and around, doing all kinds of things,
What's this
humbling whom,
person
num, num,
doing?
num, whom, num, num, num. Like,
Yes.
what is Reiki? Should we trust those sources? What do we feel about that?
So, Reiki is universal life force energy. It is based on the understanding of key energy, and there are several different types of Reiki as well. So, there's not just one type of Reiki. The one that I am a Reiki master in is Usui Reiki, which is arguably, I think, the longest Reiki that's been around. And it was established by Dr. Usui, one of the three of them in this kind of branch of Reiki. It was established by him. He was chronically ill and he went up on a mountain for like 21 days and went through this whole enlightenment process and discovered the key energy that resides in all of us and started to understand Reiki, which incorporates that key energy, understanding that we all have that inside of us and we all have the ability to tap into it and to be able to bring healing to all of everything pretty much. It can be plants, it could be you can Reiki your car. You can like Reiki
Oh, wow.
runs in everything. It is universal life force energy. So as far as when you're going on TikTok and you're seeing people, it's all about discernment. It's always about discernment, isn't it? It's all about discernment because sometimes people feel as if when they're doing Reiki, you have to wave your hands everywhere, or you have to say, certain phrases or sayings, or you have to hum, or you have to, speak light language. And actually, none of that is actually necessary. It's about what
Okay.
you're called to. It's about what you are called to doing when you are channeling that Reiki. What a Reiki master is, what a Reiki practitioner is somebody who can channel that life force energy and emit it out to our clientele, right? Emit it out to people. That's what it is. And a Reiki master not only channels that energy and emits it out to people, we attune people to be able to become a practitioner as well. So that's pretty much what Reiki is. It's not as complicated as we think it is, but it is really beautiful and it's literally inherently in all of us. And if you kind of just sat with yourself and kind of placed your hands on your head, placed your hands on your face, placed your hands on your chest, and you took in deep breaths for about 5 minutes, you would feel that.
I'm connecting dots in my head right now because a lot of the previous episodes, including the webinar that I posted a while ago, we have this recurring theme where even though some people will try and say that these practices have to be done a certain way and they have to be done very specifically, they have to be done by the book this way, in a specific way in order for them to be effective, we're now learning that, I mean, with mediumship, with magic, with the Akashic records, it's all individual. It's all attuned to the individual and how it channels directly through them. And I think that is a very recurring theme and something that can be very useful along your healing journey is there's no right
Absolutely.
way to do things.
Absolutely. And when you're learning Reiki and like when I teach, yes, there is structure and there is a specific way that I have to teach you and the information that I teach you has to be specific in order for you to know and how to utilize it. But eventually, the more you practice, the more you kind of pull away from that structure. It's basically a foundation. It's not necessarily a you have to do it this way. It's just a foundation for you to be able to practice, practice, practice until you start to utilize and incorporate your own intuition and then be able to kind of go about your own practice in your own way.
when you're receiving a Reiki session as well, it kind of applies the same way. The more that you receive that healing, the more that you will be able to attune with yourself, and the more that you'll be able to self attune outside of a Reiki professional. A Reiki professional is there, at least in from my perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ruthie, but a Reiki professional is there to help get you to a point where you don't necessarily need them anymore. They're help and to get you to a point where you're in alignment and you can connect and attune with your own body to understand how to keep yourself in that alignment, or if need be, you can always come back as a needed basis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Reiki is not something where you like need it every single time, every single week. It doesn't need to be on a kind of like chronic basis because you start to understand what affects your energy. When people undertake Reiki, there's a bunch of different things that can happen, right? You can get hot flashes, you can feel cold, you can get visions, you can hear things. It aligns everything and starts to almost activate. It's Reiki, when you are receiving it, can activate your chakras and activate those energy centers that we all have within us, and so you can actually have profound experiences, seeing a past life. You can cry during Reiki and not even understand why. There's so many different things and so many different benefits to Reiki that I think sometimes people can take it for granted a little bit, right? Because it feels so good and it's so amazing and it allows you to align yourself. But in reality, we all have this ability, right? And we all have the capability to align ourselves, to get ourselves right. And I think the most important thing about Reiki is the utilization and incorporation of how important breath work is. And if we were all kind of incorporating that in our daily life whenever we're getting anxious, whenever we are afraid, whenever our insecurities pop up, whenever certain things, triggers, traumas kind of get triggered, all those things, whenever they pop up, if we were to utilize breath work and sit with ourselves and breathe for a couple minutes and allow ourselves to feel safe in that moment and allow that energy to pass, I think that we would all be a little further along than we think we are now.
And I feel like some people who believe they are further along could benefit from a little bit of breath work and a little bit of that Reiki session themselves if they haven't received it, because even somebody who has spent years healing along their journey, there could be things hidden within their energy centers or within their flow that a Reiki master is able to pull up and bring to the surface. Like you
Healers
said, you could
need
start
healing
crying
too.
for no reason.
Yeah, healers need healing too. I am 1,000%. I back that always. And for me, I do a lot of Reiki and I do a lot of work in teaching other people. But even for me, I go back to my Reiki master, to the person who taught me, and I'm like, hey, I need a Reiki session. Like I need that. And it allows me to work through some things and it allows me to identify, even though I'm a Reiki master, right? There's some things that I can identify for myself that somebody else who has a different perspective can identify for me and be like, "Hey, this is what's been kind of like stopping you up here. This is what's been bothering you. This is this." And I recently actually got a Reiki session from my friend. It was like within the past 2 weeks. And she was able to identify some stuff for me and she was able to release a lot of things for me and allow me to kind of transmute the energy that's been stuck within my energy centers.
So then that kind of goes to what are the actual healing capabilities? Because we talked about, okay, healing, it can do physical healing, it can do spiritual healing, it can do emotional healing, but what is the full scope? What is the full range? We've touched on how in the past it's helped with, my migraines, and I'm not going to say it's
Yeah.
not going to help you fix your broken bone, after you've just broken your
It's
leg, right?
it's not. It's
We've got
not.
to be rational about this.
Yeah, exactly. Reiki has a crap ton of benefits. If I could name them all, we'd probably be here for like the next 20 hours, you know? But Reiki ultimately benefits not only here in the present, but past, present, and future. It transcends timelines. It transcends like time and space. And so Reiki actually has benefits not only in where you are now, your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual well-being, but also past lives, you know, inner child healing, shadow work. It can transcend all of that. You can do this in your Akashic records, you know, bring Reiki energy and into it and healing those specific things. So honestly, there's so much. It's about relief, it's about healing, it's about releasing, and it's overall about alignment.
And I love that you brought up the Akashic Records again, because my previous episode right before this was about the Akashic Records that I released with Just Next Level. And we talked about how healing it can be to go into your Akashics and kind of how you can bring your energy there initially. So I then, I guess, want to talk about how can somebody get access to this Reiki energy just to kind of step their foot into it? How do they dip their foot into this Reiki energy just to feel how potentially powerful it is for them outside of
So
potentially getting a reading, obviously, or getting
So, what I would say is self Reiki, right? It's kind of loops back to what I said at the beginning, where you can sit with yourself 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and you can place your hands on your heart. You can place your hands on your third eye. You can place your hands on your head. You can place your hands on your throat, right? And simply breathe as you're going through those, as you're touching each chakra, as you're, you know, touching wherever you feel like you are being guided, breathing through that, sitting with that for 3 to 5 minutes, and taking mental notes as to how you're feeling, as to what you're seeing, what you're hearing, anything that you're experiencing, so that you can learn to understand what it is exactly your energy feels like, what it is when you are channeling that energy to help, you know, heal yourself or to help stabilize yourself, to help calm yourself down. It's as simple as that, honestly.
the simplicity is something that is again something that's constantly recurring throughout all of these themes now is it doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to be this whole extraordinary ritual that you spend 3 hours doing. You can make it that if you feel that you want
Right?
to make it that, but it
Hmm.
doesn't need to be that. It can be taking the 10 minutes before you go into work, put your hand on your heart chakra and AKA right around your chest, and just
Hmm.
take a deep breath in for 10 minutes with your eyes closed to identify what that flow
Yeah.
is.
Agreed. Yes. It's actually more simple than human beings tend to make it out to be. You can do it as you wake up, you know, when you do that in the morning, it can give you more energy. You can do it before you go to sleep, so it can help you sleep. You can do it, you know, before you, like you said, go into work to help calm that social anxiety or whenever you're about to be within or around people. It's actually really, really simple. And I think that most people sometimes want it to be hard because maybe it's something to achieve. Well, I think that when things are simple for humans, we kind of get complacent because it's so simple. That
Yeah,
makes sense.
it does. And I think that also ties back into people search for a potential reason as to why we could be feeling this or why it could have an effect. And there are some potential answers that we can find within quantum physics and within quantum science and how different cells relate to each other. With that being said, why do we need a reason if it works? Right? If it works, if it's effective enough that again, they have it as holistic treatment for healing for cancer patients, why would it not be effective for you just trying to process through emotional or spiritual imbalances within your energy? It's that
And
same
I think
application.
right, we are beautiful, energetic beings. And I think it all goes back to just being human, right? It's about fears, it's about insecurity, it's about the unknown. And a lot of humans fear that unknown. A lot of humans have that fear of touching something that they don't necessarily know about, or they don't necessarily know how it works, right? And I think it kind of goes back to that. So, if you are interested in Reiki and let's say you're unsure about it, you're unsure and you may not necessarily know what that's going to entail for you. What I would suggest is finding somebody who does Reiki on lives, right? If you're a TikTok person, find someone who does Reiki on lives, find someone who is able to showcase what that looks like, what that feels like collectively, and then decide if that's something you want to embark on yourself. And then, you schedule your private session and then you see how it works for you.
Yeah, and I will emphasize the use your discernment. There's always morals and ethics pieces that I like to bring into my episodes because it is always a factor to consider, no matter what you are looking at, no matter who you are
Absolutely.
talking to, no matter what topic. What are some red flags within the Reiki community that people should
So
look out for?
I
Outside of just
love that.
using your discernment,
I
what
love
are
that
some red
question.
flags?
I love that question because there are red flags when it comes to Reiki. So first of all, if anyone sends you Reiki without your consent, that's a no-go. If somebody sends you Reiki and they're not asking you about your medical history, if they're not questioning you like, hey, is there anything I need to know about, anything I need to worry about as far as your body before I go into your energy? Because with certain medical things, for example, diabetes, or if someone has a pacemaker, Reiki does impact that. So if somebody has a pacemaker, Reiki can interrupt that flow and make their heart beat faster. I know that for personal experience because my sister has a pacemaker. And when I do Reiki on her, when she asks me to, of course, when I do Reiki on her, her heart literally feels like it's about to jump out of her chest. So a lot of the
Interesting.
times I have to kind of skip the heart chakra and like go around it so that it's not affecting it so much. With diabetes, it can raise your blood sugar. It can absolutely do that. And so if
Wow.
somebody is not asking you about these things and they're not kind of giving you these questions and they're not interested in like, okay, what area do you think you need to work in? Reiki is all about you. So if a Reiki practitioner is not asking you any questions about you, it's a little bit of a red flag. It's something to watch out for. And again, above everything, it's about consent. So you'll see like when people go and do on TikToks and they're on their little, videos, it's like consent for Reiki because you have to consent in order for it to affect you. You have to consent. Whether it's in your head, in your heart, out loud, it don't matter.
That is actually a good point to make because that's something that people can look out for. You know, when you're looking to see, okay, is somebody legitimate? The very first thing is, are they asking for consent and are they checking in with who they're actually doing the Reiki for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, with that being said, there are a lot of contradictions out there that go against Reiki. You know, it's just woo woo, as some people like to call it nowadays. It's just some woo woo crap that isn't actually real. And what is your perspective, I guess, on this? I have my perspective that I'll share afterwards, and it's a similar perspective that if you're a frequent listener to my podcast, you will have already heard about 3 or 4 times by now. But I want to hear your perspective on what your response to that would be.
I think that if it works for you, it works for you. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Reiki, when you are experiencing Reiki, when you are and some people will be like, "Well, I don't feel anything." That's actually completely normal for Reiki as well. Like you don't have to feel something in order to be like, oh, "This is real. Oh my God." It's not feeling anything is completely normal too. And I think that if it's something you believe in, cool. And if it's not, also cool. But don't diminish a practice simply because you don't believe in it. I think that it is an extremely healing modality. And I think that for the people who absolutely undertake this and do their Reiki sessions, our Reiki masters, our people, our Reiki practitioners, I think that we see the results in the people that we heal, and it's just kind of another modality that not only heals others but brings healing to us too. So if you're
Yeah,
cool with it and you rock with it, great. If not, also great.
yeah. And that kind of ties into what I believe too, because I believe in a large part of it. I don't believe that it is the placebo effect, but for those who don't necessarily believe in Reiki, I can 9 times out of 10 say that they believe in the placebo effect because it's a scientifically proven effect. If Reiki is nothing but woo woo spiritual mumbo jumbo, its placebo effect alone could be enough that why not just embrace it? Why not allow it? Why not see what it could do for you? See what it could do for others if you tell them about it. Again, if you're not a Reiki practitioner, don't offer Reiki to other people. Just from my perspective, you need to be trained, and it takes a while to train somebody to a master level. No matter what kind of anything that you're studying, to become a master takes a long time. So I wouldn't say go around and start waving your hands around people trying to feel their energy, but start with yourself and see how it
Yes.
feels.
Yeah. It is absolutely important to start with you. And when you are learning Reiki, that is what it's all about, right? It's about starting with you and healing yourself first, because literally the Reiki masters, the people who established Usui Reiki, Dr. Usui, Dr. Hayashi, and Madame Takata, they believed that if you did not heal yourself, you could not heal others. So yeah, it's very important to start with yourself, and it's very important to be open, right? Reiki is about being open. It's about being open to receive, it's about being open to understand or not understand, in whichever case it may be. But it's about being open to that receptivity and understanding that this energy is based off of key energy, and we all have key energy. It is the energy that runs through all living things.
I think living things by definition is a little bit skewed as well.
I
I think,
agree.
like you said, it can run through cars, it can run through a lot of different things. A lot of those metals that we've refined, just because we've refined them and put electricity through them and have them pumping gas so that we can go 65 miles, 70 miles an hour down the highway, doesn't mean that that wasn't still earthly energy that has that life force chi running through it.
It's all about you, you know? What do you believe in? What don't you believe in? And being willing to explore that.
Yeah. And that's part of the healing journey. And again, just tying back to what this podcast is really about, it's about your healing pathway. If Reiki is part of that pathway, amazing. If it's not part of that pathway, that's just as fine too. But Reiki can be extremely beneficial. If nothing else, a lot of times it can bring up buried energies within you that previously you would not have been able to pick up on. So Reiki can be extremely beneficial for you. It is something that can benefit in the physical healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing. Like I said, we have to be rational about this. And once again, we're not medical professionals, so none of this, we're not coming from a medical perspective, but when we're talking about physical healing, if you break your leg, though Reiki isn't able to fix or heal your leg, it can maybe aid in the pain management that you're feeling during the healing process. So there's a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different ways that Reiki can actually be beneficial that people just do not consider, or they may have not considered. And that's a large part of the reason why I made this podcast, is because they just may not know, and you may not know where to go or what to do. So, with that being said, Do you have anything, any final notes or anything? I know this was a little bit of a shorter episode, but I feel like we've we've pretty much gone over a lot of what Reiki is. I don't
Yeah,
know how much more we can nail it in.
I love Reiki. I think that it kind of goes back to, and this is just who I am and what my business is based off of. I'm pretty sure. Um, it's about the exploration process, right? Spirituality is nothing if you don't explore what it is that you are capable of, what it is that you want to do, what it is that, like, you are. What are you? You know? And I think we all have that question when it comes to spirituality and empowering yourself to discover exactly what that looks like for you. And so for me, it's based off of a lot of my mentorships and how I do things, is to empower you to explore spirituality. It's to empower you to explore who you are, what you're capable of, and what you can do outside of societal rules and norms, and to really just be who you are, whatever that looks like, because it changes every fucking day. Every day, I
It
am a
does.
different version of myself. And you have to be willing to explore that in order to be the best version of you every single day.
I love that. It reminds me of a quote. Forget where it came from, so I promise I'm not trying to plagiarize, but it's a quote that came from somewhere about how our personalities are similar to a rose and how
Yeah.
each of its petals are very unique in its formation,
Mm-hmm.
but they're all part of the same rose and they all lead to the same beauty.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think we need to embrace that energy a little bit more and embrace your inner rose. And with that being said, how can people explore their self and explore their spirituality with you? Where can people find you, Ruthie?
Well, I am on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, God knows. I'm everywhere.
All over
I'm
the
on
place.
TikTok, Spicy Spirituality. I'm on Facebook as Spicy Spiritual Services. I'm on Instagram as Spicy Spirituality with two Y's at the end for both of them. And I'm on YouTube as well, Spicy Spirituality, two Y's at the end. Um, I think that I bring the spice to life, to the healing journey, and I'm here to again just help you explore whatever that looks like. And I think that everyone needs to realize and remember that our spiritual journey isn't meant to be traversed alone. It's not meant to look stagnant or the same. You're not meant to stick with like one mentor, one community, one crew. Like, it's not like that. It's not supposed to be like that. So allow yourself to color outside the lines a little bit.
Absolutely. And I feel like that is just one last final remark. If you are working with any Reiki practitioner that tells you that you can't go see another Reiki practitioner, it's time to leave. It's
Yeah.
time to
If
go.
anybody tells you, like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this, or you shouldn't see this, or you shouldn't be working with this one, it's a red flag. And it's with anybody in the spiritual community. It doesn't matter who, what, where, when, why. Don't allow anybody to dim your shine and to, again, stop you from exploring. You're supposed to.
Absolutely. Even if that exploration leads you to questionable places, it teaches you a lesson in those questionable places.
Sometimes you over season your chicken. Over seasoning your chicken leads you to learn how to season it right.
Absolutely. Same thing with under seasoning. Same thing
Yes.
with under seasoning.
And that's why I'm the spicy one. Because man, you've got to learn and you've got to be willing to learn. And with Reiki, with mediumship, with spirituality as a whole, it's all about your receptivity. It's all about how willing you are to receive. And as you get deeper into this journey and as you get deeper into this healing and as you get deeper into understanding yourself, you start to trust more and you start to be willing to receive more. even if you're scared.
Yes, yeah. And I can say from personal experience that is absolutely true. And even as we discussed at the beginning of this, even if you feel as if you are the most healed person in the entire world,
And
there's
there's still
probably
more you
still
could
more
do.
healing to do.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So, with that being said, I kind of think we nailed through everything that we can talk about with Reiki. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find Ruthie. She is an amazing resource for Reiki. If you have any astrology questions, you guys always know where to find me at pathwaylightbycorey.com. And until next month, y'all, this is a monthly podcast. So, until next month, have a fantastic March, and I will talk to everybody again in April. Bye, all.